tools for contextualized learning, for the emphasis on law and security. We want to thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you find this PD Institute to be a worthwhile experience. We want to thank Megan Farrell for facilitating this afternoon session, and also thank you to Dr. Heather Bruce and Stacey Downey, Tracy Richard, Nakia Lynch, and Cynthia Brown for the coordination of these events and all their hard work. So thank you again, and Stacey, we can get started whenever you're ready.
Absolutely. So everyone, you have the ability to ask questions throughout the session. You can unmute yourself to do that, and you can also type questions into the chat, and we will definitely stop periodically for questions, but feel free to make this session work for you. We would recommend that each person turn off their video so that when the recording is saved, we have the presentation that we're seeing on the screen as well as our facilitator's video displayed. If you have any questions or need any assistance, please type into the chat. As you know, you can find that chat by clicking on the chat bubble, the old-fashioned comic book text bubble, or you can you can send a note to Aussie AFETA, and one of the members of the Adult Family Education team can assist you, and I'll put that email address in the chat as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Stacey and Dr. Bruce and Michelle and the whole Aussie team for having us here today. Hooray! So Wednesday afternoon, let's get ourselves revved up for a very important topic. And thank you to those who are just joining us. You'll find in the chat a link to the slideshow and the sample lessons that you can download from today's session. So throughout our PD Institute so far, we've been looking at different industries and tools to contextualize the learning to help prepare our adults for those careers. And today, or this afternoon, we're looking at the range of law and security professions, especially at entry level. So I tried to select a lesson that would be applicable to a broad range of those careers. If you have specific requests, feel free. We're a small enough group, you can take yourself off chat if you have, or off mute. If you have anything to share, contribute, questions, don't feel like you're interrupting. We'd love to hear from you about what you're doing and your requests. This is can be a choose your own adventure kind of session. So I think that at this point so far, everybody who's come in, I've seen your name in one of our sessions earlier in the week, but just in case, here's the same blog we've been using, blog.mustseed.org. And the top post is on the upper left. So if you click on law and security, which is where we are now, you'll have a PDF of our slideshow and of the document that we're using for all our sessions with the lesson plans. If you like, you can just follow along on the screen, but if you want to access that later for the links, that's available for you as well. So, of course, we are so grateful to the folks at Aussie and University of District of Columbia for not only this session, but all the resources that you provide, which we're going to highlight some of later. And our big question for the day is, as we are preparing folks for professions in law and security, how can we do that in such a way that we can improve public safety? And I feel like this is a big societal-wide question, right, that we've been asking really for many years, but has been highlighted and ramped up in the past couple of years. Anybody have some thoughts on this for things that you do or ideas that you have for ways you try to bring in that public safety attitude into your trainings? I know it's kind of a big picture question, so don't feel like you have to write although I'm sure many of us could write a full dissertation on the topic. But even if you just have a few words or thoughts, you can pop them in chat, or again, take yourself off mute if you like, for ways that you improve public safety through the work that you do, preparing folks for law and security. Is this Miss Taylor? Oh, she's back off. I know some folks earlier were saying they were having some technical issues, so hopefully that's not the case over there.
Okay, so
there
yes,
you are.
this is Miss Taylor. So
Yeah.
I think it's really important that we share as much information as possible regarding the changes in the law. I tried to do that with my educational group as well as with my employment group. We are a law enforcement agency, but the offenders don't necessarily see us as that, or if they do, they don't expect the information to come from us. So the changes of laws, I think the biggest thing is to make sure we share this much information and talk about the accountability from each of us and with the expectation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's really excellent. Yeah, I feel like sometimes law, as you're saying, it's kind of a moving target. So the more we can make sure that folks are aware of those expectations. Thank you so much. Great. And other folks want to chime in, feel free as we move along. And we're still monitoring chat. I figured out how to not have the gray screen of death while I'm looking at chat and our slideshow at the same time, so that's exciting. So another way that we can educate our students who are in these fields, encountering these fields, is today's lesson plan at least is going to focus on community resources. And because, of course, we know a lot of behavior, whether that's behavior in the classroom, micro behavior or big issues, sometimes just come from people not having what they need and having dysfunctional ways to try and fulfill those needs, right? So, and then, of course, today we're going to end with our curated selection of learning tools for law and security. I have a really great link for that. And actually, I know that, well, I'll get to it. There's just a really great laundry list. So make sure to take your notes, however you take them. If you, clip links, or personally, I write things down by hand because it can definitely help us remember longer. But as we get into this, thinking about how to really increase the engagement that we have with our students. And, I'm going to show you just so many resources and tools today. I'm going to just throw all sorts of things at you. But, we know that how we use tools, right, is just as important as the tools that we're using. So as we think about the strategies that we use, one thing we can start is to think about, pull up a memory of a really meaningful on-the-job learning experience that you had that maybe helped form you in your career path. And would anyone like to share a memory or a thought you have of something that just was really authentic, really meaningful as you were formed? This is our thinking music. So there's so many experiences I'm sure that you're kind of pulling into your head right now as you're thinking about, okay, what are some things that really change the way that I do a job, or somebody who is a really great mentor for me. I think one of the things that, as we think about contextualized lesson plans, we can remember back to our own experiences of how somebody modeled for us behavior, whether those kind of nonverbals of, how to be assertive with confidence, maybe without having to maybe blow up. I think that's one for me is seeing people who, put their foot down firmly, but didn't have to kind of explode. Right? Was one just amazing uh, thing that I continue to learn. But workforce skills, we have a whole range of verbal to nonverbal. So our contextual lesson plan does have some of the more explicit things that we're trying to teach. Make sure that we are connecting the dots for them between the world they're going to be living in, right? The context that they're going to be in the workforce and what they're learning in the classroom. But also the way that we present it is also just as important. So we have kind of notes throughout our lessons about some of those nonverbal communication skills that we can build. So our template is, I'm not going to, you can kind of see the list on the screen, and hopefully you've seen it earlier in the week, but you can think of it a little bit like the My Plate, right? Where you make sure that you have a well-rounded meal presented for yourself for full nutrition. And our lessons can be the same way. Sometimes we can have something that's really like tasty, really engaging, but maybe we could do a little bit more to give folks something to take home with them, or do a little more exploration. So that's why we have this outline for us. So our lesson today is from the Literacy Cooperative's Contextualized Curriculum, and I actually pulled it from healthcare because I think that healthcare is one of the industries that has a lot of overlap with law and security, especially when it comes to dealing with the public and people who are, being first responders, being folks who are dealing with traumatic situations and people in crisis. So our key strategies, and if you've heard this earlier today, hopefully you can sing along with me. So our three key strategies we want to make sure are in every contextualized lesson plan are CID, we're interdisciplinary, we contextualize, differentiate. Three key strategies, you and me, girl. All right, so hopefully this is a take home we can remember every time we're writing a lesson plan. And thinking about the one of those three keys that I want to pull out for today's lesson is to talk about differentiation. So we know that dealing with adult learners, we get the full spectrum, right? I don't know any adult classroom that's not a multi-level classroom in some way, where people have different skill sets. So there are many ways that we can differentiate law and security. And if you have some ideas on that, feel free to pop it in on chat. If you want to unmute yourself, you're welcome to. And I'll give you a few seconds to think about it before I just give you an answer. How can we differentiate? So one of the strategies we can use for differentiation is small group work. Hopefully we're all using assessment, right? I'm kind of making that assumption as folks are coming in to our programs and doing orientation. Small group work is not just to identify, okay, these folks have, this gap that we need to fill together, but also you can do small group work based on strengths, or another strategy is to mix small groups. So some folks do it by level where, okay, folks who need help in this particular strategy are here and here and here, and I rotate through while folks are then doing work independently. While I'm working over here, they're working independently over there. But another way is if you're giving an activity to the group, instead of giving it out individually, you build small groups, but you try to put complementary people together, right? So maybe somebody who's stronger in their digital literacy skills, and then you have somebody else who's maybe stronger in their spelling and writing skills. So getting those folks in a group together is another great way to differentiate and build on strengths. And group work is also a way to help folks practice some of those interpersonal skills, right, that we use so much in this field. So in this particular lesson on community resources, we have several student activities where we can utilize small groups or differentiation as we go along, and some extra supports. So as we get into our PDF of our contextualized lesson plans, we can scroll down to our law and security lesson. And the one thing I want to point out before I just dive straight into the lesson activities themselves is this objectives section. So here we include academic, an academic standard, and then also a industry standard, so that we're trying to do a both and, right? That's how we're always interdisciplinary. And you can also specify these two things that are, if you're working towards a specific certification, right? And you know this is going to be on the test. Okay, list that in the objectives. Or if you're also preparing for a high school equivalency exam, okay, we're going to stick that in there. So our warm up activity here, as folks are coming in, is to think about just defining what community resources are, right? So our whole lesson is going to be around this topic, but if we are preparing folks for law and security, thinking about how knowing community resources is important, not only for you personally, because they have that benefit, obviously, but also how can they be helpful to the citizens that you serve, using that as kind of a conversation starter for scenarios that they might be in. And I'm sure you can think yourself of many situations, perhaps that you've been in or students have been in, where somebody at the right time was able to redirect them to just the right resource, right, at the right time, and to help them resolve whatever the issue was, whether it was a domestic issue or a conflict between neighbors. Finding the right community resource can really make all the difference. But there's also those long-term community resources, which many of us are providing in our programs. So sometimes what happens in the course of these lessons is we may have a student who engages with us for just one thing, and they may not even be aware of all the services you have available just within your organization, let alone all the things that may be in the community that they were not aware of yet. And it's also a chance for those who have more experience in that area to kind of teach back. So it's a nice way to build on the knowledge of your students as well. So we start this off with a language arts activity of just treating these different topics of community resources as vocabulary words. What are pregnancy services? What are financial services? What is that? What are all the things under that category, and what are some examples they can be looking for? So what you're looking for here is not only giving them good vocabulary that they can use on their tests, on their certifications, on their high school equivalency exams, but also helping them think of synonyms. You're doing a lot of language learning there, but also giving them search terms, right? And doing a little bit of digital literacy of pulling out, sometimes you search for something under one word, but really, if you use a different word, you're going to get better results. So, and as you're defining these, you're also putting it in that context. When engaging with law or security professions, or engaging with the public as somebody who is in law and security, how is suicide prevention, right? How many people call 911 because they or somebody they know is, actively considering suicide, and then what do we do from there? What do you do when you come across the person who's literally like trying to jump off the bridge? So you can see how easy it is to take this lesson. Yeah, this happens in healthcare and happens all the time in law and security as well. And then as you're discussing those things, and sometimes some of these conversations do get emotional as people may share, their personal engagement with some of these resources, but then you want to help them start documenting. And a lot of law and security jobs are a lot of documentation, right? A lot of incident reports and tracking locations and things like that. So they're going to take these words and bring them to the internet. And to help with that resource search online, we have a worksheet. So you have used they'll be taking those terms, that list of terms that you've worked through as vocabulary, and then as they find, they're not going to take every single category. Maybe you divide it up where, you have different small groups who are each taking one or two categories and finding some organizations who are serving the community with those services. 2-on-1 is also a great directory. And I believe, where did it go? I accidentally closed 2-on-1, so there we go. All right, so one of the nice things about 2-on-1 is they do use very easy to understand language in terms of their search parameters. But even things like disaster recovery or thank you so much, Stacey, for putting that link in the chat for us. But you can have, if your students are familiar with different search engines, you may want to do that. But if you are at all concerned about them, because the internet can be a little bit like the Wild Wild West in terms of you don't know what's going to come up sometimes in terms of accuracy or advertisements. So 2-on-1 is a good starting point for them. But it doesn't cover everything. Another tool that you have available to you is DC Career Coach, and specifically the programs area. So training and education obviously is what you're doing. And so you may be familiar with specific education and training programs, but this is also a great thing to share with your students so that, as so many of us, right, wear many hats, have multiple income streams, have to be able to change industries, or when one thing shuts down, we have to, go in another direction to fill in the gaps. So, and also to share with their neighbors and friends, everybody should know in DC how to find these programs. So, and law, public safety, corrections, and security is a whole category right there. And it's kind of frozen on me. Here we go. All right, so you can, you have all education and training types. You can have on the job, training, and hopefully that's a couple of programs you're familiar with. And I think DCHR, who may be on the line, and a few other programs will soon be added to this list, so that's great. And as Stacy's pointing out here, you can also sign up. The sign up link allows students to build a resume and to connect to programs and save jobs so that they can, so you have your resume builder tool over here. But you do have to log in and create your account. So if you're going to do that, make sure you you build in that time to that day. And then another way, so I know for having done this with a wide variety of different groups, I think sometimes that is just one whole class right there, right? You're having the conversation, you're defining vocabulary, you're doing a Google search, you're documenting it on your worksheet. That's enough for one day. And especially if you're doing anything like creating an account or saving programs, all of that. So there's a lot of great stuff people will find as they search, and they'll want to talk about it and share. But if you have a longer period of time in one class, or you can chunk this into another class, creating a map is another great activity. It's bringing in your social studies aspect as well, and a lot of our visual learning that is done very explicitly in K-12, and sometimes honestly we do get so focused on the numbers, the formulas, the text, that there are a lot of ways that we can also incorporate these visual literacy. So this could be used offline using graph paper, or even just making lines, a grid map on a regular lined piece of paper. They could even take a blank paper and use a ruler. You can use an atlas offline if you are in that context, which I know in a lot of like corrections and reentry, there may be times or places where you don't have internet access. So that's another great tool, or adaptation. But if you are online, you can use Map Customizer, which is built on the Google Maps interface, but it allows, it just allows a little bit more location and description without all of the other Google Maps stuff on top of it, right? It's only the things that you stick on there, not everything in the world for that section. So you can create a new map, you can save your maps on Map Customizer. And then a third option, again, if you're offline, is you can actually use Google Maps yourself and have the area that you want to cover of the neighborhood, and then print out just that, and then give that to your students so they can then visually kind of add on there. Oh yeah, I was in the Huff neighborhood of Cleveland, so I did this several times with different groups in our neighborhood. Yeah, and we had a nice rectangle, or it was a little bit. We had the one edge that was a little bit of an angle, but it was easy to put on a landscape piece of paper, and we would have folks kind of. We would actually do a walking tour and meet different folks who were working in different fields, and then come back and map those and everything else they could possibly think of on there. So that makes it really fun. And then, of course, they're going to want to share, right? Because this is some really good stuff, things that they found for themselves personally that their neighbors would enjoy. So, and of course, keep bringing this back. This is one of those lessons that people find so personally rich, so helpful for themselves, and their own families and their own neighbors. And you can keep bringing it back to that industry focus, right, and help them think of scenarios in the workforce where they would also utilize this knowledge, just so it's fresh in their mind that sometimes we know things for ourselves and we don't always think about until after the conversation. Oh yeah, I could have told them about this. So having them think about that in advance so that when they're in that crisis, first responder, trauma situation where they're trying to be the helper, how can they bring in some of this knowledge and resources for them? All right, and then we have some differentiation suggestions. So does anyone else have some other activities, perhaps related things when it comes to, we talked a little bit about bringing in knowledge of changes to the law or scenarios? Questions, thoughts? We did mention, TwoOnOne.org, which I think everyone should know, and Career Coach, but also is mentioned in here as one of the differentiation tools, and can be used for personalized learning, is GCF Learn Free. So this is focused specifically on Google Maps, and this is for your folks who maybe need some of that digital literacy help. Maybe it's been a while since they've been able to access Google Maps, or maybe they're just not a look that up on the internet kind of person. They're going to ask a human being, which is another fantastic tool, but helping them apply that to the abstraction of maps is something that GCF is great at. So it walks you through step by step. Google Maps themselves have some tutorials, but these folks at It's Goodwill Foundation really know how to speak well to. And there's actually a whole series. So what is Google Maps is just the first in a series of tutorials and activities for folks. And GCF Learn Free is also a nice one. I have it under the personalized learning category here because it's something that you can kind of hopefully, once they get used to the system, it's one you can kind of trust them to work on. It's not going to have ads or pop-ups or things that are going to accidentally get them off in all sorts of crazy directions. So it's a good one for folks to kind of be able to work independently on for a while. Another area of differentiation we can do is using large print. And this is, of course, something you can do in your physical print, especially if you're getting like atlases or things like that. But also showing them how they can use assistive tech if they're on Google Maps, for example. And I often do this in training, so you've probably seen me do it. So I'm going to look, that's me. But I can hop over to where you are, and it's going to think about it. And you can make it bigger. So using your zoom here, and or using more tools. There's also some other accessibility tools like the read alouds, the text to audio is very common now, and the other way around, audio to text, where I don't know if it's not on this one, but on my phone, and I do this a lot actually, because I, want to be more or less hands-free. So I'll pull up my Google Maps and click on the little, the little icon, to say, help me get to Pueblo Real, whatever, that's around the corner. But, say the location and the city, and, it figures out the directions for you. So there are a lot of little tips and tools like that for assistive tech that sometimes helps folks, especially who, may really need to be bringing their glasses to class, but always forget them because it's really a style thing. Help them be able to access some things on the internet, help them get over that hump. Alrighty, so our highlighted resource is DC Career Coach, hooray, programs, and we also talked about Resume Builder. And our certification, highlighted certification, is the Physical Security Certification, which is kind of the most entry level of a series of certifications offered by the Center for Development of Security Excellence. There's a lot of those C sounds in a row. So, and, I'm going to start making everything sound really snaky right now. So the video here kind of goes over actually a wide range of what they have. And I think that trying to run video and play a video at the same time, my computer does not like that right now. So it froze on me. But the highlighted program right there in DC, especially for those of you who may be new to this area, if you're looking for a program that's been doing it for a little while, and shout out if somebody there, if you are here from Congress Heights, I think we had some folks yesterday afternoon from Congress Heights, but they have a series of facility management careers, and physical security is one of them. So on their homepage, they have a flyer here. And they are leading to national certifications. And they have several different jobs: crowd control, skilled maintenance, and they're doing blended instruction, which I think a lot of us are right now. Or you're doing some online and some in person. And the other thing I thought was fun when I went on just now today is they're doing their art all night. So if you haven't been able to go check that out, it looks super fun. So head on over for art all night. All right, so any other resources that anyone out there would like to share, things that you have used in law and security careers, or around community resources in general, kind of getting folks connected to what's out there, career exploration?
Feel free to unmute yourself. Just go ahead and unmute if you'd like to add something.
Thanks for that reminder, Stacey. I'm going to clean this up while you're thinking. A few more great tools for you. As we mentioned, this lesson plan was not only industry, but also a kind of language arts vocabulary lesson. And for folks who may be English language learners, USA Learns is an excellent free resource that starts from beginner to intermediate and also has some citizenship. I actually know several programs that use USA Learns as their for their waiting list folks. So especially if they're doing, say, individual tutoring and they don't necessarily have enough volunteers for all the students, or somebody comes in and the class they want doesn't start for 3 weeks. but they still want to get folks started. USA Learns is one of the tools that several folks up here in Northeast Ohio use, especially for their English language learners. Read, Write, Think is recently did a revamp. So they look visually different than they used to, but but they still have wonderful resources, and I use them particularly for graphic organizers. I think they have some of the best, cleanest printables and also interactives. E-reading worksheets is another one that I've seen several folks recommend as, and I think this was for developed by a K-12 teacher, but the worksheets are very clean, and they also have some quizzes and PowerPoints that go along with them. So they're not, they're cover that kind of middle school range of language arts without being particularly childish. Oops. I just meant to go backwards. So ReadWorks is another for, okay, I think that link must be, it looks like a link, but it's not. So ReadWorks is another K-12 resource that can be used both for in-class assignments, but also is something that has a lot of nonfiction content that you can assign by Lexile level. So if you have, the reading levels of your students, and you can assign something that is appropriate to that level, but and one of the nice things is you can, have something on a theme, and if you have a multi-level classroom, you can all be talking about the same theme, but then you can give different passages about that theme that are at different levels. Let's see. Are these resources also? Excellent question. We have had several in some of our other sessions, but this one in particular, I think, is more for ELLs than English in particular. Read, Write, Think. Collections. No, I think these are all in the ELA category and not language arts in general. So that is unfortunate. GCF Learn Free, though, should be, because we're looking at it in English, but here we go. Yep. GCF Learn Free has a lot in Espanol as well. Yeah, Read, Write. Did I look at Read, Write, Think? Let's see if they have. Here we go. Oh, internet. Well, maybe it will appear in a nicer format for you. But here you go. This is for Read, Write, Think, and this is the Spanish side, Espanol side of GCF Aprende Libre. Great question, thank you. And I do know for sure the resources that Aussie has provided all have Spanish version. So Essential Ed's programs have been translated into Spanish. Let's look at Career Coach DC actually, because I don't know if I saw that button. Nope. Okay, whoopsie. Virtual Job Shadow. Where's their link? Their search bar. I feel like Google search does a better job sometimes than the search bar, even on a lot of websites, you know? Or DuckDuckGo. I'm calling it Google search, but it's not. Now it looks like they have they just have closed captioning, but it's all in English. And let's check out North Star Digital Literacy Assessment. I'm hoping this is under English language learners, and is it available in other languages? Not yet, but they're exploring funding opportunities. So I'll come back to this one. All right, and here's the one that I really wanted to share with you because it's just fantastic. So the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission has developed a whole ton of online training resources. They have sexual assault training, elder abuse, pedestrian safety, domestic violence and human trafficking, victim assistance, the Law Enforcement Innovation Center. So suicide prevention, just all of those hot topics that, you know, kind of at the beginning we were thinking about, you know, what are things we can do to really improve public safety? These are the resources that you want to improve public safety, all on one page. So this is a really, I'm going to pop that in chat for you as well. Awesome. So any other requests, questions, maybe resources that you use that you would like to share? Or would you like just to talk about your program and what you've been doing? We are thinking now, getting to the end of the day on a Wednesday. Oh, that was the page I should be on for any other questions. The last one was all about the links. We're all about the links, about those links. No text, no. So if you go to the table of contents of our PDF and you go to the end, all web links by industry, we're down here at law and security. Then clickety-clack, there you go. Our highlighted programs and certifications. And of course, they're in our slideshow as well. So I hope that you've come out of this with at least one thing that you're going to dive deeper into and be able to utilize with your folks, your adult learners, to help improve not only, you know, their own personal quality of life, but of course, the whole community that you're serving through your work. It's so important, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of that work to continue to reflect on the practice and improve. So these sessions are all recorded, so you can, or once they are processed, you'll be able to go back and share them with colleagues, and you can right away already share the PDF and the slideshow. So we hope you share that widely, or maybe the links to some of the resources that you found, or some of the strategies, or maybe you'll just go home singing to yourself, CID, we're interdisciplinary. So thank you for all the work you do and the time you've spent with us today. Anything else you want to share in closing? Stacy, Dr. Bruce, Michelle?
This has been wonderful. It looks like Kia might be adding something in chat, and we do want to remind everyone to join us for the final session. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry. But while we're seeing if there are any other comments that people would like to make or chat, I would like to remind you that our 7th session of this particular fall 2021 Mini Professional Development Institute that is brought to you by Aussie Adult and Family Education in partnership with the University of the District of Columbia will be tomorrow morning, Thursday, September 30th, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., and that will feature early childhood education. It too will be recorded, so you can always catch it once we post it if you're not able to be there tomorrow. But please share the information widely to your team members, to your partners, other providers, providers that are in your neighborhood or in your network. All are welcome to attend.
Awesome. And thank you so much, Nakia, for that comment. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Megan, for doing a phenomenal job this afternoon as well, and for the facilitation of the training this morning as well. Everyone have a blessed remainder of your day, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.